The old folks called it Echo Woods. It was a place shrouded in mystery and fear, a place where the very air seemed to hum with ancient secrets. They said it was haunted. Haunted not just by spirits, but by the memories of those who had ventured too far and never returned. No one dared to go in there. The entrance itself seemed to warn off intruders with its dark, foreboding presence. The trees were gnarled and twisted, their branches intertwined like the fingers of a giant skeletal hand casting eerie shadows on the forest floor. They seemed to reach out with long, bony fingers. It was as if the forest itself was alive, watching, waiting for the next soul to wander in. The woods were always dark, even in the daytime. The thick canopy of leaves blocked out the sun, creating a perpetual twilight that played tricks on the eyes. A chilling silence hung in the air, broken only by the sound of the wind. It was a silence that seemed to amplify every rustle, every snap of a twig. The wind whispered through the trees. It sounded like voices, angry voices. Voices that seemed to carry the weight of centuries of sorrow and rage. Everyone had heard the stories. Stories passed down through generations, each more terrifying than the last. Stories of people who went into Echo Woods and never came out. They spoke of ghostly apparitions, of shadows that moved on their own, and of a feeling of being watched that never went away. Some said the forest was cursed, that it was a place where the veil between the living and the dead was thin. An old map, found in a dusty attic, showed paths that no longer existed, as if the forest itself had changed over time. Around campfires, people would share their own encounters. A hunter who heard footsteps behind him, but saw no one when he turned around. A child who saw glowing eyes in the darkness, only to find nothing there when he looked again. There were tales of an old cabin deep within the woods, abandoned and decaying. Some claimed to have seen lights flickering in its windows at night, though no one lived there. And then there were the carvings, strange symbols etched into the bark of ancient trees, symbols that no one could decipher. They were said to be warnings, left by those who had come before. The fog that rolled through the forest seemed almost alive, swirling and shifting as if it had a mind of its own. It was easy to get lost, to lose all sense of direction, and always there was the feeling of being watched. A shadowy figure glimpsed out of the corner of your eye, disappearing when you turned to look. On nights when the moon was full, the forest took on an even more sinister appearance. The pale light cast long, eerie shadows, and the whispers seemed louder, more insistent. Yet despite all the warnings, there were always those who felt the pull of Echo Woods. Drawn by curiosity, or perhaps something more, they would step onto the path and disappear into the darkness. And the forest would remain, silent and watchful, waiting for the next soul to wander in.
I dare you to go in.
Yeah, right. And end up like Old Man Withers?
Who's gonna stop us?
Yeah, let's do it.
It's just a story.
They entered the woods at dusk. The air grew cold. A shiver ran down Jack's spine.
See? Nothing to be scared of.
The trees pressed in on them. The path was overgrown with thorns and brambles. Thorns snagged at Sarah's jacket. She let out a small cry,
It's just the wind.
but he looked around nervously. A strange feeling came over Jack. He felt like he was being watched. He turned around slowly. No one there. The woods were silent except for the sound of their own footsteps. Each step was heavy, crunching on dead leaves and twigs. The air grew colder, biting at their skin.
Did you hear that?
A faint whisper seemed to come from the trees. It was high-pitched, almost inaudible, like someone or something was calling their names. S3. Hear what? But he pulled his jacket tighter around him. S5. It's nothing.
The darkness seemed to deepen. The trees were closer now, their branches intertwining overhead, blocking out the last rays of light. "Where's Tom?" Sarah asked suddenly.
His voice echoed through the woods, but there was no answer. S1. They looked around. He was gone. "Tom!" Jack shouted. "This isn't funny."
Mike pointed to the ground. Footprints. They just stop.
Fear tightened its grip on them. They were alone, lost. Panic started to set in. The air was thick with fear, and every rustle of leaves sent shivers down their spines. The forest seemed to close in on them, the darkness becoming more oppressive with each passing second. They were lost, and now one of them was gone, vanished. The realization hit them like a cold wave, freezing them in place. They called out his name. but the forest swallowed their voices, offering no response.
We need to get out of here. Now. Every second counts. We can't stay in one place for too long. The forest is playing tricks on us, and we need to find a way out before it's too late.
They started to run, their hearts pounding in their chests. The sound of their footsteps echoed through the trees, a frantic rhythm that matched the beat of their racing hearts. They didn't know where they were going, only that they had to keep moving. The trees seemed to reach out for them with their long, gnarled branches. Each branch looked like a skeletal hand, trying to grab them, to pull them deeper into the darkness. The forest was alive, and it was hungry.
Mike, where are you? Answer me. The desperation in their voices was palpable, a raw edge that cut through the night. But there was no answer, only the eerie silence of the forest.
Sarah screamed. He was gone too, just like that. One moment he was there, the next he was gone, swallowed by the darkness. The terror was overwhelming, a suffocating blanket that threatened to smother them. They stopped, gasping for breath. They listened. The silence was deafening, a heavy weight that pressed down on them. Every sound seemed amplified, every rustle of leaves a potential threat. But there were only the sounds of the woods and the whispers. The whispers were louder now, closer. They seemed to come from all around, a sinister chorus that filled the air. The forest was alive with them, a living, breathing entity that watched their every move. The whispers were louder now, closer. They could feel the presence of something unseen, something that lurked just beyond the edge of their vision. The terror was palpable, a living thing that wrapped around them, squeezing tighter with each passing moment. They had to keep moving, had to find a way out before it was too late. Jack and Sarah clutched at each other, their faces pale with terror. The forest around them was a labyrinth of shadows and eerie sounds, each one more unsettling than the last. They had ventured too far, and now they were lost in a place that seemed to be alive with malevolent intent. The woods were alive with unseen eyes, and the air crackled with a strange energy. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig sent shivers down their spines. It felt as if the forest itself was watching them, waiting for the perfect moment to strike.
We have to stick together. If we get separated, we might never find our way out.
They ran again, stumbling over roots and rocks. Their breaths came in ragged gasps, and their hearts pounded in their chests. The forest seemed to close in around them, the trees growing denser and the path more treacherous with each step. The whispers seemed to follow them, taunting them. They couldn't make out the words, but the tone was unmistakable, mocking, sinister, and filled with malice. It was as if the forest was playing a cruel game, enjoying their fear and confusion. Suddenly, Sarah screamed. Her voice echoed through the trees, a sound of pure, unadulterated terror. A dark figure stood in their path. It was as if it had materialized out of the shadows, blocking their way forward. It was tall and shadowy, with glowing red eyes. The eyes seemed to pierce through the darkness, locking onto Jack and Sarah with an intensity that made their blood run cold. They veered off the path, crashing through the undergrowth. The figure didn't follow. It just stood there, watching them. Its presence was a constant reminder of the danger they were in, and the forest seemed to grow even darker and more menacing. It just stood there, watching them. S2. They could feel its gaze on their backs, a heavy, oppressive weight that made it hard to breathe. They didn't dare look back, fearing what they might see. Ah! The scream echoed through the forest, a chilling reminder of the peril they faced. They knew they had to keep moving to find a way out before it was too late. The race against fear had only just begun. The whispers were all around him now. They seemed to be coming from the trees, the ground, the air itself. Only silence answered him. He was alone. He stumbled on, desperate to escape the nightmare. He didn't know how long he ran. Time seemed to have lost all meaning. Then, he saw a light, a faint glow in the distance. Hope surged through him. He ran towards it, his legs burning, his lungs screaming for air. S1. Sarah. He burst out of the woods, gasping for breath. He was back where they had started. The campfire had died down to embers.
I made it. I'm safe.
But as he turned to leave, he heard it again. The whisper, faint but unmistakable. The curse of Echo Woods was real, and it wasn't finished with him yet. Do you think you would survive a night in Echo Woods?